Most people, when they think of kayaking, they think of slalom stuff, where people go down the rapids and through the gates and things like that. And globally, that's a relatively small sport. Kayaking as a whole is a huge sport. Most people have been in a boat at some stage or another. And I got into it just when I was 10 years old. My mum took me down to a local club, had a go, really liked it, just paddling around, splashing, seeing the ducks, that kind of thing. And it just happened that the club I was at was one of the sort of top clubs in the country that had a really good system, produced the majority of the Olympic athletes. So that was in 1987. In 88, I watched some of the athletes from my club going off to the Seoul Olympics. So as a sort of 11-year-old in a club, seeing people I'd seen around training, going off to the Seoul Olympics, seeing them on TV, coming back, they're wearing their GB Olympic kit. So it's sort of lit a bit of a candle. Yeah, and then that's how I got into it. And from 11 years old, I thought, yeah, I want to be one of those athletes. And it was very realistic as well, because I was surrounded by these people who were going to the games.
And where was the club that you really took off?
So just down the road in Weybridge.
Right.
So very locally, paddling on the Thames every day. But when I was a kid, I was only sort of paddled 2-3 times a week, and it literally was just paddling, just floating around, mucking about. And then as you get more and more serious, as you get older, you start training more and more and trying to fit everything in.
Yeah. And at what point do you think it occurred to you that you really could, for instance, win a gold medal? I mean, at what point did that happen?
I think early on, I set an ambition. I wanted to be an Olympic athlete. No one from Great Britain had won any Olympic medals in my sport, and I couldn't see why. As a junior, I was coming into a junior team where we hadn't won any medals as a junior in our sport either. And my coach, who I've now had for the last 16 years, he started coaching me and a couple of other guys, and we started breaking barriers and we kind of came into sport and said, well, why aren't we doing it? We need to just train better, train smarter and more effectively. Yeah. And we went on as a junior, won the first ever junior medals, won junior worlds. Then subsequently went on, became on the senior team, started making finals and World Cups, and then won our first ever medal in Sydney. And so because we've kind of broken down those barriers and gone against all expectations and went from a nation where people look down the start list and think, well, Great Britain are in this race, that's fine, to now they look down and think, oh no, I've got Great Britain in our race. So yeah, from those early days when it became possible to achieve things that people hadn't achieved before, I was pretty certain that I was going to get a gold medal at some point in the Olympic Games.
Oh, that's great. And as a sport, I mean, what would you say, what percentage is technical, what percentage is just hard work, and how do you break it?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is people sometimes say, well, when do you start training for the Olympics? We train all year round, all the time. So we have World Championships every year except Olympic year. During each year we have 3 World Cups and a European Championships and the Worlds except, say, an Olympic year. So it's a lot of hard work from that point of view. I've raced in Portugal last weekend. I've had 3 days off, and tomorrow I go and start training again for the next year's cycle. So we sort of had a 3-4 day just no training, and it'll be all hard work now. So all hard work now until through till next year, which is qualifying for the Olympics. But certainly when it comes to racing, there's all the hard work, all the money in the bank, everything you've done building up to that stage. But there's a huge psychological component to it as well. And part of that is experience from previous racing, putting yourself under pressure. When you're on the start line of an Olympic final, and I was as prepared as I was in Beijing, I knew that was my opportunity to get a gold medal. It's a kind of pretty stressful situation. And there was 2 or 3 other athletes in that race as well who, between us, we'd shared all the medals at all the World Cups in that year. So any of us potentially could have won that day, but I knew that was my day, and I think then mentally that makes up a lot. Some athletes crumble. Right. One of the guys that was supposed to be tipped for 2 medals at the Games, he had an awful race and finished 8th. Right. Whereas mentally you keep strong. My coach always says it in a big race it'll be 60% psychological and 40%.
So how before the race, how close are you to your competitors? I mean, can you look them in the eye, or do they keep away from you?
I guess it's much like in business. You look at your competitors, you know what they're doing, you know how they're performing and what their characteristics are like, how they race, how they compete, how they manage themselves under pressure. So but also they're actually my friends. A lot of the guys who my main rivals for medals are my friends. Well, they'll send me a text or an email. They'll come and stay with me in the UK, or if I go abroad, I'll stay with them, and we'll train together. You keep some things to yourself about your training. Certain key sessions you might not want to know about that you really gain from. But we're kind of all in the same boat. We're all trying to achieve the same things.
Winning the gold medal must have been a high. I mean, I'm sure we would like to experience it. I mean, what did it feel like? What was it?
It's hard to describe because it's something you expect in a way. I knew that I'd gone into that race with my best chance of becoming Olympic champion and achieving that result. So it's almost relief. It's the first thing you feel as you cross the line, because you think, I've done it, I've fulfilled the expectations I had of myself and my coach had, my family, friends, supporters. So far, Team GB had won 17 gold medals at that stage, and I was one of the ones that was sort of tipped to be another gold medal. So there's a lot of relief, but also elation. I mean, it's the most amazing thing ever. You can win a gold like I did the year before at the World Championships, but it doesn't mean as much. You're racing the same people. But when you cross the line Olympic gold, it's just altogether different. It is quite cliche. They say it's life changing, but it really is.
I'm sure.
And like, from an 11-year-old boy that wanted to become Olympic champion to sort of being then a 32-year-old man with not as much hair, fulfilling that.
A nice question, because you don't have to deal with it in the real world, is would you have been gutted if you'd come out away with a silver, or would you see that as a success or a failure?
I know any Olympic medal is a success. In Sydney, it was the bronze was a great success for me, because it was my first major medal at at a major championships. Athens was disappointing because I finished 5th there, which a lot of athletes would be happy with 5th, but I didn't feel I'd fulfilled my potential at that stage. During that time, I was still trying to do I finished medical school. I was working part-time, trying to train as a full-time athlete, but working 3 days a week in a hospital environment, and never got the most out of my body as I wanted to. So that's why after 18 months after Athens, I worked full-time again and became a full-time athlete to try and fulfill what I felt I could in Beijing. So because I'd applied all that energy and that belief and everything else, I think I would have been disappointed with silver. I know it sounds a bit greedy.
And then, the whole Beijing experience, what else did you enjoy? Other sports did you enjoy, or the village?
Well, I think the Olympics is an amazing thing anyway, and this is where Cisco's got a great opportunity as well, is as a company you're involved in the Olympics through the sponsorship side of things. You can follow athletes as myself or anyone else through to the games and be an actual part of it. And that's one thing that you don't get with any other World Championships. This is like everybody having their worlds at the same time, at the same place, and globally televised and publicised. And that's what makes it great. You see all the best athletes in the world there competing, and the environment, the buzz, the hype that goes with it. And then my family and friends, those that were out in Beijing or back home, experience all that too. They're all sort of caught up in the emotion and the sort of roller coaster ride of the games.
And were the facilities world class? I mean, was the food great and the physio services, everything was great?
Everything. I mean, it's a team effort. At the end of the day, it's the athletes on the field of play trying to get that medal. It's the athlete on the podium, but there's a whole load of people behind you to get you there. It's with your coach, your family support, physios, chiropractors, people that make the boats and paddles and that sort of things. It's a big team that get you there, and then of course you've got sponsors as well. You can't be a full-time athlete without the financial support and support of lots of other people as well. So it's
a real team effort.
Definitely.
So in terms of your medical career, that's on hold at the moment for the time being, and what things do you see apply that you've learned and gained in the sporting world that you've taken to the medical world and vice versa? I mean, there's lots of things. Obviously, from the technology side of things, already talked about Cisco's involvement with, as it happens, Nottingham A&E. But certainly work ethic is another thing I think you can apply from a sports career. It transfers very well into any other career as well. If you know how to manage your time effectively, how to push yourself when you're under pressure, how to really motivate your team and your people around you, and to use people to their best effect. I think that very, very transferable across the two. And I found when I was in my work environment, I was could apply all that sort of side of things as well.
It's just indoors most of the time. That was the only downside.
And that's it. I mean, that's, I'm sure you must have some mornings you wake up when the weather's just horrendous and you know you've got to get out of the river. Is that now automatic or?
Yeah, it's never easy, especially coming into the winter in outdoor sport when it's sort of sub-zero temperatures or you've got a sub-zero wind chill. Ice forms on the deck of the boat, forms across the centre of the paddle. So you have like these kind of nylon-y things that go over your hands to protect from the wind chill. They get ice in them too. So if you kind of scratch your face because you've got an itchy nose, you cut your nose with ice from the back of your paddle. It's pretty unpleasant, but it's part of it. It's sort of character building. And
so I think it's also interesting for us. We're 2 years out from the games, and how far ahead? I mean, do you know what you're going to do every single day between now and London 2012, pretty much, or is it? When do you really?
I know where I'm going to be. I know where the World Cups are next year, when they're going to be, when the World Champs are, and that sort of stuff. But training-wise, we work on normally 2 to 4 weeks ahead of schedule, right? Because you don't know what's happening, whether you're going to get a cold or something that sets you back a few days, or if your training volume is that high and you start to get really, really tired, you might need to bring a rest day forwards and adjust things that way. So, generally speaking, it's very hard to plan too far ahead.
Yeah. And your thoughts on London 2012? I mean, it's obviously going to. Do you think it's going to revolutionise the country on the sports?
It will. It's going to be amazing. I mean, just now, if you look at the Olympic Park, the way it's developing and the speed of the growth and how everything's running on time, it's setting a great example, I think, as a construction effort, but also the fact that the number of companies and British companies that have got involved in the games and sponsoring the games and how that everyone can feel a part of it. It's a unique opportunity compared to other games where you literally rock up at Sydney or Athens or Beijing and it's all there. Whereas here we can see it all developing, growing and feel a part of that process up to London and hopefully beyond.
And your event will be at the Olympic Park? Or?
No, mine will be Eton Dorney, so out near Windsor. So it's just outside of, just not far from here down the M4. So near the Reading offices.
And what sort of capacity, crowd-wise?
Normally, at the games you'll get sort of 40,000 or so people, and it's an amazing, because what happens is it's a 2,000 metre long lake. We race over the last 1,500 of it, and down the last 400 metres on either side you have grandstands that go right the way down and then around the ends. So you're kind of paddling into this amazing arena. It's like an Olympic park, having the main stadium there with one side removed, and you're paddling into the stadium where you finish. So as you're getting closer and closer, just the roar gets louder and louder as you're going in. If
you had to say one or two similarities between people who win gold medals across multiple sports, I mean, what would you say are the characteristics that are probably similar?
There's a few main things. I mean, you've got to be passionate, I think, is one of the key things. Passionate about what you want to do, believing that you're capable of doing what you want to do, and determined in it, and then with a real solid work ethic to achieve it. So if you're passionate about it, then that makes everything else flows very, very easily. Right. Because then on those hardest days when you've got particularly tough sessions in really horrible weather conditions, you know your goal at the end of the day is to be an Olympic champion. You know, when you're passionate about that, then that gets you out of bed and gets you going and gets you working hard.
Very good. Well, we're certainly all going to follow your journey.
Thank you.
And I think it's an opportunity for anyone if they want to ask any questions of Tim.
I was lucky enough to work with Peter Reid and the rowing team. He said, don't mention rowers. But he was saying the effort in winning in Beijing, he was almost kind of coughing up blood at the end. Now, you as a doctor, you'll have a theory on how hard you can be pushing yourself. So what was it like pushing through that last 100 metres?
It's much the same. I mean, athletes learn to push themselves, and it's not like it's the first time you've ever experienced that level of effort. So in training all the time, we're doing that. Some of our sessions, as we get more into the race season, we're practicing pushing yourself over that race distance at that race pace several times. We worked it out. I'd done that race about 270 times in 2008, over either split up into shorter bits and in that way. So when you actually come to race it, it's a very familiar feeling. That feeling like you want to cough up blood and pass out and vomit, all the horrible things that you feel towards the end of the race. I've done it so many times before, it wasn't an unfamiliar feeling, and it's something you're used to in training. And athletes, you learn to push yourself, push your body in that way.
But I've got one question for you. How the hell do you make it go straight?
I've done some like adventure racing where they have the kayaks there, and we have to use the same kayaks everybody else uses, and there's these big plastic tubs that just don't go straight at all. I can't get them to go straight either. But our boats, they're long and they're designed to go in a straight line. So they're very long, very narrow, very wobbly, but they have a small rudder at the back. So the rudder is basically to keep the boat in a straight line, and then to basically to turn you when you need to turn. You just operate your feet. You've got a little bar between your feet. You just push it left and right.
Is it an upper body sport? Or you
for us, it's a very dynamic thing. I don't know if you saw the video, one thing people ask kids often, if you go to schools and things, and they ask, do we have pedals in the boat? Because your legs, your knees are pumping up and down as you're paddling, because you're rotating as you paddle. And when you rotate, you're pushing and pulling with your feet. So your feet are on a footrest, and there's a bar over the top of them, like a strap, holding your feet tight on the footrest. So you're pulling with one foot and pushing with the other. So your legs take a lot of strain as you're racing as well. So we train our legs as we run, we do leg weights, cycling, as well as swimming, gym, paddling. And yeah, so core muscle strength is important for us. So mainly upper body, compared to the rowers who are mainly lower body. But yeah, we use our lower body a fair bit and train that too.
Will you try to be the next Redgrave? Are you able to be the next Redgrave?
I'm certainly not able to be the next Redgraves. He won his first gold medal when he was 18. So stuff from that point of view. But no, I think two things really spur me on. I mean, I love competing. I love the environment of competition, and I love the training side of things. And I like doing well in what I do. But at the same rate, me doing well helps bring more funding into my sport, which helps develop the team lower down the sport. So now this year we've got our strongest team at the World Championships. We've got the strongest team we've ever had. Up until this World, I was the only one that was winning medals. And now with more funding, more coaches, more everything in the sport, and over the last few years we've developed a really strong team, and we won 5 World Championship medals. So now I'm part of a team where it's not just me winning, there's 4 other athletes are winning medals, and then next year it'd be nice if 6, 7 other athletes, and then onwards like that. So that's what kind of drives me on. I like the success, I like the winning, I like training, competing, but I also like being part of a team that's growing and developing and sort of leading a stronger team when I retire eventually.
Just on that point, do the teams on a coaching level talk to each other? Because I know there's a lot of focus on what Brailsford did, cycling, and then going from rowing, and the sort of minutiae of psychology and equipment and all of those tiny bits put together. Do the coaches get together and
I mean that's where with the UK sport and the funding and things, it's brought everyone together. So there's organised conferences each year where they share information. They'll bring experts in. Dave Brailsford would have talked to all the coaches, performance directors, and everyone about how it all works. So the sharing of information is really, really important in sport generally, especially in our country, because there's no point you could be really behind the times in your sport, not achieving the results. So that's one way it worked with sports that didn't do so well at the games. They had the opportunity for people from sports that did well to come into them and say, look, this is how we did it, this is what we did. Maybe looking as an outsider, you could try this, to try and develop them as well. So it's nice like that. Everyone kind of shares the knowledge, because we're all, we might be in different sports, but we're all competing for Team GB.
So how much of your training is outside of the kayak, and what guys does that training take?
Yeah, it varies throughout the year. So as it gets more into winter, less of it's in the boat, more of it's out of the boat, thankfully, because of the weather. But still, it'll be once a day in the boat throughout the winter time, whereas summertime, coming into competition time, will be twice a day in the boat. And then the rest of the sessions will be gym. So the winter gym will be 6 times a week in a gym, 2 times running, 2 times swimming, 1 or 2 sort of hard bike rides as well in a week. So it's quite a lot to fit in.
The explosion of social media over the last few years, how have you, I know you're a social media fan, do you feel that you've been able to kind of raise the profile of your sport through that and get connected to a lot of other people and stay connected and also inspire younger people that way?
Yeah, I mean, definitely connecting with everyone across the world has been much easier through, straight away you can do it just through a website. So I've got a website, my competitors and rivals have websites, and we kind of, you kind of look at what they're doing and they look at what I'm doing, but also you can share that with everyone else. So young people in the sport can see what I'm doing through websites and also look at their idols or the people who I'm racing against and have a look at their sites. And quite often I'll get emails and questions saying, I saw on Adam Van Koeverden, who's one of my main rivals from Canada, saw on his site that he's been doing this, do you do such and such? So it's opened it up in that sense, an email communication, and it's all so fast and you can get stuff from all over the world. hopefully that's inspiring younger people to do that, because a lot of the younger kids, they'll come up to you and say, "Oh, I like your website's really cool."
Yeah, exactly.
And
follow you on Twitter or,
and then now you've got things like Twitter and Facebook and those sort of things. So I think it's been important to keep up with those things, and in terms of acknowledging sponsors as well, it's really important, using that sort of connection and technology and saying what they're doing. But then from the technology side of things, like I was talking earlier about the analysis that we use, and then sharing that analysis with other experts. You can just email a big file to somebody and they'll process it or email you back a result and look at it that way in a graph in a sort of more meaningful manner. And then we're using technologies from other sports and other, like motorsport, for example, about how they access lots of data really quickly and transfer it. So there's sort of endless ways. You think it's a water-based sport, but there's lots of ways that we use the technology, and socially media and that side of things is certainly key now for us.
Tim, thank you very much.